The Seattle rain painted watercolor streaks across the windshield of Madison Turner's car as she pulled into the familiar parking spot outside Ryan Mitchell's downtown apartment building. Her silver pendant, a graduation gift she never took off, caught the glint of streetlights as she checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. At 28, Madison had built the life she'd always dreamed of. A thriving career as an interior designer, a boyfriend who seemed to worship the ground she walked on, and a best friend who felt more like a sister. If only she knew how quickly dreams could shatter. The security guard nodded as she entered the lobby, familiar with her evening visits to apartment 1505. "Evening, Miss Turner. Mr. Mitchell's in." He hesitated for a moment, something flickering across his weathered face, but Madison was already heading for the elevator, her mind on the surprise she had planned. The elevator's soft hum accompanied her ascent, and she found herself smiling, thinking about how Ryan would react to her showing up unannounced. They'd been together for 3 years, and he still looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. At least that's what she'd always believed. The hallway on the 15th floor was quiet, save for the subtle whisper of the building's heating system. Madison's heels clicked against the polished floor as she approached Ryan's door, fishing out the spare key he'd given her 6 months ago. "For emergencies," he'd said with a wink. "Or surprises." Her hand froze on the doorknob as she heard it. Laughter. Not just Ryan's familiar chuckle, but a woman's voice. Too intimate, too comfortable in this space that was supposed to be their sanctuary. Madison's heart began to race, her chest constricting as if someone had wrapped steel bands around her ribs. No, she thought. There has to be an explanation. The door wasn't fully closed, another detail that would haunt her later. And it swung open silently under her trembling hand. Ryan's expensive cologne mingled with a perfume she knew too well, a scent she'd helped pick out during a shopping trip months ago. Madison moved through the apartment like a ghost, her designer heels suddenly silent on the hardwood floors. The Yadan bedroom door was ajar, spilling warm light into the hallway along with sounds that made her stomach twist into knots. One peek. That's all it took. There, tangled in the sheets of the bed where she'd slept countless nights, were the two people she trusted most in the world. Ryan Mitchell, the man she'd planned to marry, and Olivia Reed, her best friend since college. The world tilted on its axis. Madison didn't scream. She didn't storm in and demand explanations. Instead, she backed away, her hand pressed against her mouth to stifle the sob threatening to tear from her throat. Her feet carried her to the elevator, then through the lobby, past the security guard who called out something she couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. The rain had intensified, but Madison barely felt it as she stumbled into the street. Her perfectly styled hair plastered to her face, mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. She got into her car but couldn't bring herself to start it. Instead, she sat there, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white, trying to breathe through the pain that threatened to tear her apart from the inside. Everything she believed about love, trust, and loyalty lay shattered around her like broken glass. The future she'd carefully planned, the life she thought she knew, all of it was built on lies. Without conscious thought, Madison found herself driving through the rain-slicked streets of Seattle. She had no destination in mind, just an overwhelming need to escape the suffocating reality of what she'd witnessed. The city lights blurred through her tears, creating halos that matched the hollow feeling in her chest. She parked near the waterfront where the towering silhouettes of office buildings pierced the cloudy night sky. The Parker Building, 70 stories of steel and glass, loomed before her like a mountain of shadows. Madison knew the building. Well, she'd helped design the interior of 3 floors last year. Her heels clicked against concrete as she made her way to the service entrance. The security card she still had from the project worked. They hadn't deactivated it yet. In the service elevator, Madison pressed the button for the roof access, her movements mechanical, divorced from conscious thought. The wind hit her like a physical force when she stepped onto the roof. Rain pelted her face, mixing with tears she couldn't stop. Madison moved to the edge, her hands gripping the cold metal railing as she looked down at the city below. The streets seemed so far away, the cars like toys, their headlights cutting through the rain in endless streams of red and white. "How did I not see it?" she whispered to the wind. "How did I miss the signs?" The pain in her chest had become unbearable, a living thing that clawed at her insides. Madison closed her eyes, letting the rain wash over her face. For a moment, she wondered if anyone would miss her, really miss her, if she just let go. "Don't do it." The voice cut through the wind and rain, deep and commanding, with a British accent that seemed completely out of place in this moment of absolute despair. Madison's eyes snapped open, but she didn't turn around. "You don't know me," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm. "You don't know what I've lost." Footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. "No, I don't. But I know that whatever you're feeling right now, however deep that pain goes, it's not worth your life." Finally, Madison turned and found herself looking into the most intense gray eyes she'd ever seen. The man stood a few feet away, his expensive suit soaked through, dark hair plastered to his forehead. Despite the rain, he radiated a kind of contained power, like a storm held in check by sheer force of will. "I'm Alexander Graham," he said, extending his hand as if they were meeting at a business lunch rather than on a rooftop in the middle of a storm. "And I think you and I need to have a conversation." Madison Turner stared at the outstretched hand before her, raindrops cascading off expensive cufflinks that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The absurdity of the moment, a business introduction on the edge of a 70-story building, sparked something between a laugh and a sob in her throat. "A conversation?" Her voice cracked. "I don't think I'm really in the mood for small talk, Mr. Graham." Alexander didn't lower his hand. "Humor me. I've found that the worst decisions are often made in solitude." A gust of wind whipped around them and Madison's grip tightened on the railing. The city below continued its rain-blurred dance of lights and shadows, completely indifferent to her pain. She thought about Ryan and Olivia, probably still tangled in each other's arms, equally indifferent to the devastation they'd caused. "Why are you here?" she asked, not moving from her spot. "I own this building." His voice carried a weight of authority that seemed to cut through the storm. "The security system alerted me when someone accessed the roof at this hour. I was working late in my office on the 68th floor." He paused, studying her with those storm-gray eyes. "Your turn. Why are you here?" Madison's laugh was hollow. "Would you believe me if I said I came for the view?" "No." His directness startled her. "The view's better from the observation deck on the 69th floor. And people who come for the view don't usually look like they've had their world torn apart." The accuracy of his observation hit too close to home. Madison felt fresh tears well up, thankful that the rain masked them. "Maybe I have." Alexander took a step closer, his expensive shoes crunching on the wet gravel of the rooftop. "Tell me." "Why should I?" "Because I'm here, and you're here, and sometimes the universe has a peculiar way of putting the right people in the right place at exactly the right moment." He shrugged off his suit jacket and held it out to her. "And because you're shivering." Madison hadn't even noticed the cold until he mentioned it. Her clothes were soaked through, her designer dress clinging to her body like a second skin. Still, she hesitated. "I don't need your charity, Mr. Graham." "Alexander," he corrected. "And it's not charity. Consider it a trade. My jacket for your story." Something in his tone, a mixture of command and genuine concern, made Madison finally release her grip on the railing. She took the jacket with trembling hands, wrapping it around her shoulders. The fabric was wet, but it still carried warmth and a subtle scent of expensive cologne. "I caught my boyfriend in bed with my best friend tonight," she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. 3 years of my life, countless promises, all the plans we made, gone. Just like that. Alexander's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "And you thought jumping was the answer?" "I thought Madison closed her eyes, trying to organize the chaos in her mind. I thought about how easy it would be to just stop feeling this pain, to not have to wake up tomorrow and face the reality that the two people I trusted most in the world betrayed me. The pain doesn't stop if you jump, Alexander said quietly. It just transfers to everyone else who cares about you. You sound like you're speaking from experience. He moved to stand beside her at the railing, both of them looking out over the Seattle skyline. My wife Charlotte took her own life 4 years ago. She had been battling depression, but I was too caught up in building my empire to see how badly she was struggling. His voice carried no emotion, as if he were reading from a business report, but his knuckles were white where they gripped the railing. I found her in our bathroom. She left a note saying she didn't want to be a burden anymore. Madison felt the weight of his words settle over her like a physical thing. I'm so sorry. I'm not telling you this for sympathy, Alexander said, turning to face her. I'm telling you because for months after Charlotte died, I came to places like this. High places, quiet places, places where it would be easy to follow her. But I realized something. Dying is easy. Living, really living despite the pain, that's the hard part. That's the brave choice. A police siren wailed somewhere in the distance, its echo bouncing off the surrounding buildings. Madison found herself studying Alexander's profile, noting the tension in his jaw, the way his shoulders carried an invisible weight. How did you do it? She asked. How did you choose to live? I focused on what I could control, my company, my goals. I threw myself into work until the pain became manageable. He turned those intense eyes on her again. What do you do, Madison? The use of her name startled her. She hadn't told him what it was. Then she remembered her security card must have identified her. I'm an interior designer, she said. Actually, I worked on 3 floors of this building last year. The 42nd through 44th floors, Alexander nodded. The Sustainable Materials Project. That was your work? You know about that? I make it my business to know everything that happens in my buildings. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That project won an award for innovative eco-friendly design, didn't it? Madison nodded, surprised he knew the details. The American Society of Interior Designers gave it their Sustainability Award. Then you're talented, passionate about your work. That's something to live for, isn't it? The question hung in the rain-filled air between them. Madison looked down at her hands, still clutching Alexander's jacket around her shoulders. The pain in her chest hadn't disappeared, but somehow it felt different, more manageable. I have an opening, Alexander said suddenly. In New York, my company is launching a new series of sustainable office spaces, and we need someone with vision to lead the interior design aspects. Madison's head snapped up. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a choice. He turned to fully face her, his expression intense. You can stay here in Seattle, surrounded by memories and betrayal, or you can come to New York and help build something meaningful, something that could change the way people think about sustainable architecture and design. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're talented. I know you're hurting. And I know that sometimes the best way to heal is to pour yourself into creating something beautiful. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, somehow still pristine despite the rain. The choice is yours, Madison. But you have to be alive to make it. Madison took the card, her fingers brushing against his. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her system like static electricity, but warmer, more alive. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Alexander's expression softened slightly. Because 4 years ago no one was there to offer me a different path. And because I've learned that sometimes the greatest achievements come from our darkest moments. He stepped back, creating distance between them. Take some time. Think about it. But not here. Not on this roof. Madison looked at the business card in her hand, then back at the city below. The urge to disappear into that darkness had faded, replaced by something else. Not hope, exactly, but possibility. The faintest glimmer of a future she couldn't yet see. Okay, she said softly. Not here. Alexander nodded once, then gestured toward the roof access door. Let me drive you home. We can talk more about the New York project if you'd like. As they walked away from the edge, Madison felt something shift inside her. The pain was still there, a constant ache in her chest, but it no longer felt like it would consume her whole. She had choices. She had talent. And maybe, just maybe, she had a future that didn't include Ryan Mitchell or Olivia Reed. She had survived the night everything changed. Now she just had to figure out who she would become in the aftermath. Madison's apartment felt like a museum of broken memories. Every corner held echoes of a life that no longer existed. Photos she needed to take down, gifts she couldn't bear to look at, and 1,000 tiny reminders of her relationship with Ryan and her friendship with Olivia. The morning sun filtered through her bedroom window, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. She hadn't slept. After Alexander Graham had dropped her off last night, she'd spent hours sitting in her living room, his business card turning over and over in her trembling hands. Her phone buzzed again, the 27th time since midnight. She glanced at the screen. Ryan Mitchell, 6:45 a.m. Madison, please. We need to talk. What you saw? I can explain everything. Just call me back. Below his message were a dozen texts from Olivia. Olivia Reed, 6:30 a.m. Maddie, I know you hate me right now. You have every right to. But please let me explain. Olivia Reed, 6:31 a.m. It was a mistake. A horrible, terrible mistake. Olivia Reed, 6:32 a.m. You're my best friend. Please don't shut me out. Madison's thumb hovered over the block button. With 2 quick taps, she could erase them from her digital life, just as they had erased 3 years of trust in a single night. Instead, she placed the phone face down on her coffee table and walked to the window. Seattle was waking up. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything with that fresh, clean scent that always followed a storm. From her 12th floor apartment, she could see the Parker building where she'd stood just hours ago, its windows gleaming in the morning light. The memory of Alexander's words echoed in her mind. Dying is easy. Living, really living despite the pain, that's the hard part. That's the brave choice. Her eyes fell on her desk, where she'd placed his card last night. Alexander Graham, CEO, Graham Sustainable Technologies. The New York address seemed to taunt her with its possibilities. The sound of someone knocking at her door made her jump. Madison? Ryan's voice carried through the wood. Baby, I know you're in there. Your car's outside. Please, just let me explain. Her heart started racing. She backed away from the door, bumping into her design table. Sketches and fabric samples scattered across the floor. Pieces of projects she'd been working on before. Her world imploded. Go away, Ryan. Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. Not until we talk. His tone grew desperate. What happened with Olivia? It didn't mean anything. It was a stupid mistake. You're the one I love. Madison's hands clenched into fists. A mistake? How long? Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of her rapid breathing. Madison, how long? She heard him sigh. 3 months. The words hit her like physical blows. 3 months. A quarter of a year filled with lies, with secret meetings, with betrayal so deep it made her physically ill. 3 months, she repeated, her voice hollow. All those times we had dinner together, the 3 of us, you were already... She couldn't finish the sentence. I never meant to hurt you. A harsh laugh escaped her throat. That's funny because hurting me is exactly what you did. Both of you. She moved closer to the door, placing her palm against its cool surface. Did you laugh about it? Did you and Olivia share private jokes about how stupid I was? How I never... Suspected? No. God, Madison, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Ryan? Help me understand how the man who said he wanted to marry me could sleep with my best friend for 3 months and still look me in the eyes every day. More silence. Then softly, I don't know. Madison closed her eyes, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. Neither do I. And I don't want to know. I don't want your explanations or your excuses. I want you to leave. Madison, if you ever cared about me at all, you'll walk away right now. She stood there, hand pressed against the door, listening as his footsteps slowly receded down the hallway. Only when she was sure he was gone did she allow herself to slide to the floor, her back against the door. Her eyes landed on the scattered design materials, mood boards, color palettes, textile samples. One particular sketch caught her attention. Her award-winning design for the Parker Building's sustainable offices. She reached for it, studying the clean lines and innovative use of space that had earned her recognition in the industry. Almost without conscious thought, she found herself reaching for her phone, not to read more messages from Ryan or Olivia, but to dial a number she'd programmed in last night. It rang twice before his British accent filled the line. Alexander. Graham. It's Madison Turner. She took a deep breath. About that position in New York. You've made a decision? His tone gave nothing away. Madison looked around her apartment, at all the pieces of her old life surrounding her. Yes, I want to know more. Good. Was that approval she heard in his voice? Can you be at my office in an hour? 68th floor of the Parker Building. She glanced at her reflection in the window. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, hair still messy from the rain. An hour? Too soon? No, she said, surprising herself. An hour is perfect. After hanging up, Madison stood and walked to her bedroom. She opened her closet, pushing past the dresses Ryan had complimented and the blouses she'd borrowed from Olivia. In the back, she found what she was looking for. A sleek black pantsuit she'd bought for her last design award ceremony but never worn. As she dressed, applying makeup to hide her sleepless night, Madison felt something crystallizing inside her. The pain hadn't disappeared. It was still there, a constant ache in her chest. But alongside it was something new. Determination, maybe. Or defiance. 45 minutes later, she stood in the elevator of the Parker Building, watching the numbers climb toward the 68th floor. Her hand clutched her portfolio, hastily assembled but containing her best work. The doors opened to reveal a stunning reception area she'd never seen before, all glass and sustainable bamboo, with a breathtaking view of the Seattle skyline. An elegant woman in her 50s looked up from the reception desk. Ms. Turner, Mr. Graham is expecting you. Madison followed her through glass doors into a corner office that seemed to float above the city. Alexander stood at the window, his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. He turned as she entered, and Madison felt her breath catch slightly. In the daylight, he was even more imposing than he had been on the roof. His tailored charcoal suit emphasized broad shoulders, and those intense gray eyes seemed to see right through her carefully constructed composure. Ms. Turner, he said, gesturing to a chair, shall we discuss your future? Madison squared her shoulders and met his gaze directly. Yes, she said, I think we shall. As she took her seat, Madison realized that for the first time since last night, she wasn't thinking about Ryan or Olivia. Instead, her mind was filled with possibilities of New York, of new projects, of a life she never imagined for herself. Sometimes, she thought, the end of one story was just the beginning of another. Alexander Graham's office felt like stepping into the future. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle, while living walls of carefully cultivated plants brought the outside in. Madison's designer instincts immediately noted the thoughtful integration of sustainable materials with cutting-edge technology. Do you take coffee? Alexander asked, his voice pulling her attention back to the moment. Black, please. He pressed a button on his desk, and moments later, the elegant receptionist entered with 2 steaming cups. The coffee was served in handcrafted ceramic mugs, not the disposable cups most offices used. Local artisan, Alexander explained, noticing her appreciation of the craftsmanship. Everything in this office, down to the smallest detail, reflects our commitment to sustainability and supporting local creators. Madison took a sip, the rich flavor spreading warmth through her exhausted body. The integration is seamless. Most companies treat sustainability as an afterthought, something to mention in press releases. But this? She gestured to the space around them. This feels authentic. A flash of approval crossed Alexander's face. That's exactly what I'm looking for in New York. Authenticity, innovation, a vision that goes beyond the standard corporate approach to green design. He stood walking to one of the living walls. His fingers brushed against a fern leaf, and Madison found herself studying his profile. The strong jaw, the slight tension around his eyes that hinted at carefully controlled emotions. Tell me, Ms. Turner, why did you become an interior designer? The question caught her off guard. She'd expected to discuss portfolios and project timelines, not personal motivations. She paused, considering. I believe spaces shape people. The environments we inhabit affect how we think, how we feel, how we interact with others. Good design isn't just about aesthetics, it's about creating spaces that enhance lives. Alexander turned to face her. And what about spaces that heal? Madison's breath caught. The question hit too close to home, too close to the raw edges of her own wounds. Is that what you're looking for in New York? She asked carefully. Healing spaces? In a way. He returned to his desk, pressing another button that activated a holographic display. 3-dimensional renderings of a building appeared in the air between them. This is the Prism. 20 stories of revolutionary, sustainable architecture in the heart of Manhattan. But I don't just want offices. I want to create an environment that changes how people think about work, about community, about their impact on the world. Madison leaned forward, studying the rotating model. The architecture is stunning. Foster and Partners, but the interiors. He waved his hand, and the model shifted to show empty floor plans. That's where you come in. If you want to. Her heart raced. The opportunity was incredible, but doubt crept in. Why me? You must have dozens of top designers eager for this project. Alexander's expression remained unreadable. I've reviewed your work extensively since last night. The Parker Building project wasn't just sustainable, it was revolutionary. You created spaces that felt both timeless and forward-thinking. But more importantly, he paused, those gray eyes locked on hers. You understand what it means to need a fresh start. Madison's fingers tightened around the coffee mug. And, you think that makes me the right person for this project? I think pain either breaks us or transforms us. Last night you stood on the edge of breaking. This morning you're here, ready to transform. He leaned back in his chair. That's the kind of resilience I need for the Prism. It won't be easy, Madison said softly. Moving across the country, starting over. Nothing worth doing ever is. Alexander stood, walking to a lateral file cabinet. He pulled out a thick folder and placed it before her. Your contract, should you choose to accept. The salary is competitive and the benefits package includes temporary housing until you find your own place in New York. Madison opened the folder, her eyes widening at the numbers. The salary was more than triple what she currently made. This is generous. It's proportional to the challenge. Alexander's voice took on an edge of intensity. I'm not just offering you a job, Ms. Turner. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something revolutionary. The Prism will set new standards for sustainable corporate architecture. Your designs could influence how spaces are created for decades to come. Madison stood, walking to the windows. Seattle spread out below her, the city where she'd built her life, fallen in love, and had her heart shattered. Somewhere down there, Ryan and Olivia were probably still trying to call her, still crafting explanations and excuses. But up here, in this office that touched the clouds, a different future beckoned. When would you need me to start? She asked, not turning around. How fast can you pack? Now she did turn, meeting his gaze. You're serious? The prism's construction is ahead of schedule. We need to begin interior planning immediately. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see flecks of silver in his gray eyes. Sometimes, Ms. Turner, the universe gives us clear signs about when it's time to move forward. Last night you were ready to end everything. Today you have a chance to begin something new. Which path will you choose? Madison looked down at the contract, then back at the city below. She thought about her apartment full of memories, her clients who could easily find other designers, her life that had shattered like a mirror, reflecting back only broken pieces of what used to be. I have one condition, she said finally. Alexander raised an eyebrow. Yes? In New York, call me Madison. A small smile tugged at her lips. Ms. Turner makes me feel like my mother. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Done. He extended his hand. Welcome to Graham Sustainable Technologies, Madison. As she shook his hand, the contact sent that same electric shock through her system that she'd felt on the roof. His grip was firm, confident, grounding. I'll need 2 weeks, she said, to wrap up my current projects and arrange the move. Take 3, I want you focused when you arrive in New York. He released her hand and walked to his desk, pressing the intercom. Claire, please show Madison to HR. They'll need to process her paperwork. The elegant receptionist appeared moments later. As Madison gathered her portfolio and the contract, Alexander spoke again. Madison? She turned at the door. Yes? Last night you chose to live. Today you're choosing to thrive. His expression softened slightly. I look forward to seeing what other choices you make. Walking out of his office, Madison felt lighter than she had in months. The pain wasn't gone. It still lurked in the corners of her heart, but now it was accompanied by something else. Purpose. Direction. Hope. She had chosen to live. She had chosen to thrive. And New York? New York was just the beginning. The storage unit looked impossibly small for 3 years of memories. Madison stood in the doorway, surrounded by labeled boxes and furniture draped in protective covers. 2 weeks had passed since she'd signed Alexander's contract, and her life had been reduced to this: what to keep, what to store, what to let go. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from Claire, Alexander's executive assistant. Your apartment in Manhattan is confirmed. The movers will deliver everything next Tuesday. Mr. Graham asked me to ensure you have everything you need for the transition. Madison smiled slightly. Even from across the country, Alexander's efficiency was impressive. He'd called twice since their meeting, each conversation focused on the Prism project, yet underlaid with an awareness of what she was going through. Madison? The voice behind her made her spine stiffen. She turned slowly to find Olivia standing there, looking small and uncertain in the fluorescent lights of the storage facility. How did you find me? Your neighbor told me you were moving things into storage. Olivia took a hesitant step forward. New York? Really? You've been talking to Ryan. It wasn't a question. He's worried about you. We both are. Olivia's eyes were red-rimmed, her usually perfect makeup slightly smudged. You can't just run away from everything. Anger flared in Madison's chest, hot and sudden. Run away? Is that what you think I'm doing? You won't answer our calls, you're leaving. Your job, your home. The job where my clients keep asking about my lovely boyfriend, Ryan. The home where I can't sleep because I keep remembering every lie you both told me. Madison's laugh was bitter. Yeah, I can't imagine why I'd want to leave all that behind. Olivia flinched. We made a terrible mistake, but throwing away your whole life isn't the answer. My whole life? Madison gestured to the storage unit. Look around, Olivia. Everything I thought was solid turned out to be an illusion. My relationship? Built on lies. My best friend? A betrayal waiting to happen. The future I planned? She picked up a framed photo of the 3 of them at last year's Christmas party, studying it with detached interest. Nothing but pretty pictures, hiding ugly truths. It wasn't all lies, Olivia whispered. The friendship we had. Madison placed the photo face down in a box marked past. That's the right word. Past tense. Please, Maddie. We've been friends since college. You can't just what? Can't just decide that my self-respect is worth more than a friendship with someone who slept with my boyfriend for 3 months? Madison's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled. Can't just choose to value myself more than people who clearly didn't value me at all. Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Both of you did. And now you want me to stay here, to watch you both try to repair your guilt while I what? Pretend it doesn't kill me inside? Madison shook her head. I won't do that to myself. The job offer, it came out of nowhere. How do you know you can trust this guy? Alexander Graham is offering me a professional opportunity. He's not pretending to be my friend while stabbing me in the back. The words hit their mark. Olivia stepped back as if physically struck. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that. Madison turned back to her boxes. But I'm not staying here to deliver it. I have a future to build. Ryan's thinking of moving to New York. Madison froze. What? He says he can't lose you. His company has an office there, and he's requesting a transfer. Olivia's voice cracked. He still loves you. The declaration hung in the air like smoke, acrid and choking. Madison closed her eyes, remembering the night on the Parker Building's roof, the way the city lights had blurred through her tears. She thought of Alexander's words. Pain either breaks us or transforms us. If Ryan comes to New York, Madison said slowly, he'll be wasting his time. I'm not moving there to run away from what happened. I'm moving there to run towards something better. She met Olivia's gaze, and neither of you is part of that something. Madison, goodbye, Olivia. She picked up her purse, taking her storage unit key from the side pocket. I have a meeting with my real estate agent about listing my condo. Please don't try to find me again. Walking away, Madison heard Olivia call her name once more, but she didn't turn back. Her heels clicked against the concrete floor, each step taking her further from her old life and closer to her new one. Outside, Seattle's afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Madison checked her watch. She had an hour before meeting her real estate agent. On impulse, she pulled out her phone and dialed a now familiar number. Alexander Graham. It's Madison. She leaned against her car, letting the sun warm her face. I need a favor. Name it. If Ryan Mitchell applies for a transfer to the New York office of his company, can you make sure it doesn't go through? A pause. You think he would follow you? I know he would try. Madison watched a plane trace its way across the blue sky, heading east. I'm not leaving Seattle to have my past chase me to New York. Consider it handled. His voice held a note of steel. No one at his firm will approve that transfer. Madison released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, Madison. Something in his tone made her pulse quicken. When you arrive in New York, remember, you're not just leaving something behind, you're moving toward something greater. You sound very sure of that. I am. A slight pause. The Prism isn't just a building project. It's a statement about transformation, about creating something extraordinary from raw potential, rather like what you're doing with your life. Madison felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the sunshine. Always the businessman, Mr. Graham? Always the visionary, Ms. Turner? She could hear the smile in his voice. Safe travels. New York awaits. After hanging up, Madison looked at her reflection in her car window. The woman staring back at her wasn't the same person who had stood on that rooftop 2 weeks ago. Her eyes held purpose now, determination replacing despair. She had 1 more week in Seattle. 1 week to pack up her condo, finalize her clients' projects, and say goodbye to the city that had shaped her. But for the first time since discovering Ryan and Olivia's betrayal, Madison felt truly, completely certain. She wasn't running away. She was running toward her future, and that future was calling her name. Manhattan's skyline blazed gold in the morning light as Madison's cab crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. Her temporary apartment, arranged by Alexander's team, was in a sleek high-rise in Brooklyn Heights, but the Prism waited for her in Lower Manhattan, its glass facade already visible among the forest of buildings. "First time in New York?" the cab driver asked, catching her wide-eyed expression in the rearview mirror. "First time living here," Madison replied, unable to take her eyes off the view. "I've visited before, but this feels different. City has a way of doing that, making everything feel different." He navigated through the increasing traffic with practiced ease. "You got that look about you." "What look?" "Like you're ready to take on the world." He grinned. "See it all the time with newcomers. Some make it, some don't. You? I'm betting on make it." Madison smiled, touching the slim portfolio in her lap. Inside were her initial concepts for the Prism's interior spaces, ideas that had kept her awake during her last week in Seattle, filling sketchbooks with possibilities. The cab pulled up to a towering glass structure that seemed to pierce the sky. "Graham Sustainable Technologies," the driver announced. "Your stop, miss." Madison paid the fare and stepped out onto the busy sidewalk. The Prism was even more impressive in person than in the holographic renderings. Its crystalline form caught the morning light, reflecting and refracting it in mesmerizing patterns. "Quite something, isn't it?" Madison turned to find a woman, about her age, standing beside her, her dark skin glowing in the morning light, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. She wore a perfectly tailored suit that screamed quiet confidence. "I'm Gabrielle Chen, Director of Operations," she said, extending her hand. "Alexander asked me to show you around before the morning meeting." Madison shook her hand, noting the firm grip. "Madison Turner, thank you for meeting me." "Trust me, it's my pleasure. We've been dying to meet the designer who impressed Alexander Graham enough to hire her on the spot." Gabrielle's smile was warm but evaluating. "He doesn't usually make snap decisions." They entered the building's lobby where sustainable materials blended seamlessly with cutting-edge technology. Madison's designer eye caught every detail: the living walls, the natural light optimization, the subtle integration of renewable energy displays. "The Prism will be even more advanced," Gabrielle said, noting Madison's interest. "Alexander's vision is to create not just a sustainable building, but a blueprint for the future of urban architecture." The elevator whispered upward, its glass walls offering expanding views of the city. "How long have you worked with Alexander?" Madison asked. 5 years, since right after." Gabrielle paused. "Well, he's a different person now than he was then. More focused, more driven, some say colder, but I don't think that's accurate. He just channels everything into his vision." Madison thought of the man who had stood with her on that rainy rooftop, who had seen past her pain to her potential. He seems to have a gift for seeing possibilities others miss. Speaking of possibilities, the elevator opened onto a vast floor filled with workstations, meeting rooms, and collaboration spaces. "This is where the magic happens. Your team is eager to meet you." A group of young designers looked up expectantly as Gabrielle led Madison toward them. Their workstations were covered in sketches, material samples, and sustainable design references. "Team, meet Madison Turner, our new head of interior design for the Prism project." Gabrielle's introduction was interrupted by the ping of her phone. She checked it and smiled. "And it seems Alexander would like to see you in his office before the morning meeting. Shall we?" They took another elevator to the top floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. Alexander's New York office made his Seattle space look modest in comparison. Here, the integration of technology and sustainable design reached new heights. Alexander stood at a holographic display manipulating a 3D model of the Prism. He turned as they entered, and Madison felt that now familiar jolt of electricity when their eyes met. "Madison, welcome to New York." His voice carried the same quiet authority she remembered, but something else lingered beneath the surface, an energy she couldn't quite name. "Thank you. The building is incredible." She moved to study the holographic model. Even more impressive than the Seattle rendering suggested. "Wait until you see your workspace." He waved his hand, and the model zoomed in on several floors. "I've had the team set up a design studio on the 45th floor. Complete control over the environment, state-of-the-art modeling technology, and..." He smiled slightly. "A view that might inspire even greater innovations than your Seattle achievements." Madison opened her portfolio. "Speaking of innovations, I've been working on some initial concepts." "Save them for the meeting," Alexander interrupted gently. "First, there's something else we need to discuss." He nodded to Gabriel, who quietly left the office. "Is everything all right?" Madison asked, noting the shift in his demeanor. Ryan Mitchell attempted to transfer to his company's New York office last week. Alexander's expression hardened slightly. "As requested, I ensured it was denied. However, he's now applied for a position with a competitor here in Manhattan." Madison's heart skipped. "He's really trying to follow me." "Yes." Alexander moved closer, his presence both reassuring and unsettling. "I can handle that situation as well if you'd like. One call would ensure he finds no opportunities in New York." Madison stared out at the city sprawled below them, her new home, her fresh start. The thought of Ryan pursuing her here made her stomach clench, but... "No," she said finally. "Let him try. I won't let him or anyone else derail what I'm building here." Alexander studied her for a long moment, and she saw approval flash in those gray eyes. "You're stronger than you were on that rooftop." "I'm choosing to be." She met his gaze steadily. "You taught me that." Something shifted in the air between them, a tension that hadn't been there in Seattle. Alexander took a step back, maintaining professional distance. "The morning meeting starts in 10 minutes. Your team will be presenting their initial research on sustainable materials." He returned to his desk. "Show them why I brought you here, Madison." She nodded, gathering her portfolio. At the door, she paused. "Alexander?" He looked up. "Yes? Thank you. Not just for the job, but for..." She gestured vaguely. "Everything." His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Prove me right about you, Madison. That's all the thanks I need." Walking to the conference room, Madison felt energy coursing through her veins. She had 3 months to transform the Prism's interior from concept to reality. Her team was waiting for direction. Her ideas were ready to take shape. And if Ryan thought he could chase her to New York? Well, he was about to discover that the woman he'd betrayed no longer existed. In her place stood someone stronger, someone focused, someone ready to create something extraordinary. Manhattan's morning sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of possibility. Madison Turner took a deep breath and stepped into her future. The traditional corporate environment is dead. Madison's voice carried across the packed conference room as she gestured to the holographic display behind her. 6 weeks into her role at Graham Sustainable Technologies, she stood before the project's major stakeholders, presenting her vision for the Prism's interior spaces. "What we're creating isn't just an office building, it's a living ecosystem." She waved her hand, and the hologram transformed, showing a dramatic atrium space. Natural light penetrates to the core through a series of sculptural light wells. Living walls don't just purify the air, they create natural boundaries between spaces. Every material, every texture, every sightline is designed to reduce stress and increase productivity. From his position at the head of the table, Alexander watched her intently. Madison felt the weight of his gaze but kept her focus on the presentation. She'd worked 18-hour days to prepare for this moment, and she could feel the energy in the room shifting as her vision took shape before them. The traditional corporate hierarchy of corner offices and cubicle farms reinforces outdated power structures, she continued, advancing to the next visualization. Our design eliminates these barriers, Instead, we create fluid spaces that adapt to their users' needs. Quiet zones for focused work, collaborative areas that foster innovation, social spaces that build community. And the cost? One of the board members, a silver-haired man named Richard Blackwood, leaned forward. These materials, these systems, they're not cheap. Madison had been waiting for this question. The initial investment is higher than traditional construction, yes, but our projections show a return on investment within 5 years through reduced energy costs, increased productivity, and lower employee turnover. More importantly, she met Alexander's eyes briefly. You can't put a price tag on being a pioneer. Well said. Alexander's voice carried subtle approval. Madison's design doesn't just meet our sustainability goals, it exceeds them. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. The presentation continued for another 30 minutes, with Madison fielding questions about everything, from material durability to space utilization rates. When it was over, the room buzzed with excited conversation as the stakeholders filed out. Impressive work, Gabrielle said, appearing at Madison's side. You've won them over, even old Richard, and he never likes anything new. Thanks. Madison began gathering her materials, trying to calm her racing heart. I just hope I can deliver on everything I promised. You will. Alexander's voice made them both turn. He stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Gabrielle, could you give us a moment? After Gabrielle left, Alexander closed the door. Your vision for the prism is extraordinary. But Madison could sense something else coming. But we have a situation that needs addressing. He moved to the window, his reflection overlaying the city view. Ryan Mitchell has accepted a position with Davidson Development. They're our main competitor for sustainable projects in Manhattan. Madison's stomach dropped. He actually did it. He moved to New York. Yes. And Davidson's office is 3 blocks from here. Alexander turned to face her. I could have prevented this. I asked you not to. I know, and I respected that choice. He stepped closer. But now we need to discuss implications. Davidson will be bidding against us for major contracts. If Ryan's presence here becomes problematic, it won't. Madison lifted her chin. I can handle seeing him around. Alexander studied her face. Can you? Because what you've created here, this vision for the prism, it's too important to risk. I'm not the same person I was in Seattle, Madison said quietly. The woman who stood on that rooftop, she let other people define her worth, but this? She gestured to her presentation materials. This is mine, my vision, my future. Ryan can't touch that. Something flickered in Alexander's eyes. Pride, maybe, or something deeper. He moved closer, close enough that Madison could smell his cologne, could see the tiny flecks of silver in his gray eyes. Have dinner with me, he said suddenly. Madison's breath caught. What? Dinner. To celebrate your presentation's success. His voice was carefully neutral. Purely professional, of course. Before Madison could respond, the door opened. Gabrielle entered, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but the contractors need immediate input on the atrium specifications and... She stopped, noting the tension in the room. I can come back. No, Madison said quickly, stepping back from Alexander. I'll handle it now. The atrium timing is crucial. She gathered her tablets and folders, hyper-aware of Alexander's presence. Thank you for the dinner invitation, but I should focus on the project deadlines. She hurried out before he could respond, following Gabrielle to the elevator. Her heart was pounding, and not from the presentation adrenaline. You okay? Gabrielle asked as they descended. You look a bit flushed. Fine, just intense morning. Gabrielle gave her a knowing look. You know, Alexander hasn't invited anyone to dinner since his wife died. Not professionally or otherwise. Madison's stomach fluttered. It doesn't matter. I'm not here for dinner invitations. I'm here to create something extraordinary. The two aren't mutually exclusive. The elevator doors opened. Just be careful. Alexander Graham is more complex than most people realize. Before Madison could respond, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Manhattan area code. She declined the call, but moments later a text appeared. I know you're working at the Prism. We need to talk, Madison, please. Ryan. She showed the message to Gabrielle, who frowned. Want me to have security flag him if he shows up? No. Madison squared her shoulders. I meant what I said to Alexander. I can handle this. But as they walked into the contractor meeting, Madison felt the weight of complications pressing in. Ryan's presence in New York, Alexander's dinner invitation, the growing tension she couldn't quite name. She had come to Manhattan to reinvent herself, to create something revolutionary. She hadn't counted on the past chasing her, or on her carefully constructed walls being challenged by intense gray eyes and unexpected invitations. The morning sun streamed through the Prism's skeletal structure, creating patterns of light and shadow across the unfinished atrium. Madison took a deep breath, focusing on the space taking shape around her. This was what mattered: her vision, her work, her future. Everything else was just complication. But as she began discussing specifications with the contractors, a small voice in her head wondered if some complications might be worth exploring. And if the flutter in her stomach when Alexander stood close meant something more than professional appreciation. Only time would tell. For now, she had an atrium to build, a vision to realize, and a past to finally, completely leave behind. The October rain fell in sheets across Manhattan, turning the city into a blur of neon reflections and umbrella-dotted streets. Madison stood at the window of her design studio on the 45th floor of the Prism, watching lightning dance between buildings. It was nearly 9 p.m., but she wasn't ready to leave. The space had become her sanctuary over the past 2 months, a place where her vision could take shape without interference from the complications waiting outside. You're working too hard. She turned to find Alexander in the doorway, his suit, jacket draped over one arm. Even after a 14-hour day, he looked impeccable. Look who's talking, she replied, gesturing to the stack of reports on his tablet. Isn't it past CEO hours? CEO hours? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Is that an official metric? It should be. Madison turned back to her workstation, where holographic models of the Prism's communal spaces floated like ethereal sculptures. The contractors need these revisions by morning. The material cost for the living walls came in higher than expected, so I'm redesigning the installation pattern to have dinner with me. Madison's hands froze over the holographic controls. Alexander? Not professionally this time. He stepped into the room, his presence immediately filling the space. Just dinner, just us. Her heart thundered against her ribs. That's not a good idea. Why not? Because, she turned to face him, maintaining careful distance. Because you're my boss. Because this project is too important to complicate. Because you're scared? The directness of his question caught her off guard. I'm not scared. I'm practical. Alexander moved closer, close enough that she could see the tension in his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. Practical? Like working until 9 p.m. every night? Like avoiding every social invitation from the team? Like running away whenever we get close to having a real conversation? I'm not running away from anything, Madison protested, but her voice lacked conviction. No? He stepped closer still. Then have dinner with me. One meal, no project talk, no professional pretenses, just 2 people sharing a conversation. Madison opened her mouth to refuse again, but a commotion in the hallway interrupted them. Voices carried through the open door, one familiar, one raised in protest. Sir, you can't go in there without clearance. I just need 5 minutes. Madison, I know you're here. Ryan's voice sent ice through her veins. She saw Alexander's expression harden as her ex-boyfriend appeared in the doorway, slightly disheveled and obviously agitated. A security guard hovered behind him, looking apologetic. I'm sorry, Mr. Graham, he slipped past the lobby checkpoint. It's fine, James. Alexander's voice was cold steel. Mr. Mitchell was just leaving. Please. Ryan's eyes fixed on Madison. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Madison felt frozen, caught between past and present. Ryan looked exactly as she remembered. Handsome in that clean-cut way that had first attracted her, his blue eyes pleading. But something was different now. She was different. Whatever you have to say, she said quietly. I don't want to hear it. Maddie, please. I left everything in Seattle for you. My job, my family. You left nothing for me. Her voice gained strength. You left your job because you couldn't stand that I'd moved on. You came to New York because you can't accept that your actions have consequences. I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Madison. But what we had was a lie. The words rang through the room like a bell. Every time you kissed me while seeing Olivia behind my back. Every time you looked me in the eyes and said you loved me. All of it. Lies. Ryan took a step forward. It wasn't. That's close enough. Alexander's voice cut through the tension. He moved slightly, placing himself between Madison and Ryan. Security will escort you out. If you return, you'll be arrested for trespassing. This is between me and Madison, Ryan snapped. You don't know anything about us. I know enough. Alexander's tone could have frozen hell. I know you're the kind of man who betrays someone's trust, then tries to manipulate them into feeling guilty for walking away. I know you're so focused on what you want that you can't see the damage you're causing. And I know that if you take one more step toward Madison, you'll regret it. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Ryan's face flushed with anger. Who do you think you are? He's someone who actually cares about my well-being, Madison said, stepping up beside Alexander. Something you never did. She turned to the security guard. James, please remove Mr. Mitchell from the building, and make sure his credentials are permanently blacklisted. As security led Ryan away, his protests echoing down the hallway, Madison felt her legs go weak. Alexander's hand caught her elbow, steadying her. Are you all right? She nodded, though her hands were shaking. I didn't expect to feel so strong. His voice was gentle now, all traces of cold anger gone. Madison looked up at him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. I didn't expect you to defend me like that. Of course I defended you. His hand was still on her elbow, warm through the fabric of her blouse. I will always defend you. The intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. Here was a man who had seen her at her absolute worst, standing on a rooftop in Seattle, ready to end everything, and had recognized something in her worth saving. A man who had given her not just a job, but a purpose. A man who looked at her now like she was something precious and strong all at once. Yes, she whispered. Alexander's brow furrowed. Yes? Yes, to dinner. Madison felt her pulse race as his eyes widened slightly. Not professionally, just us. For a moment he didn't move. Then his hand slid down her arm to take her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a gesture that sent electricity through her entire body. Tomorrow night? His voice was rough around the edges. Madison nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Alexander lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that was barely a whisper of contact but felt like fire. I'll send a car at 7, he said softly. Then he released her hand and stepped back, professional distance returning like a mask sliding into place. Get some rest, Madison. The contractors can wait until morning. She watched him leave, her hand still tingling where his lips had touched it. Through the window, lightning continued to dance between Manhattan's towers, but the storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest in her heart. Tomorrow night, she would have dinner with Alexander Graham, not as his employee, not as the woman he'd saved on a rooftop, but as herself, whoever that turned out to be. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The private dining room at Per Se overlooked Central Park, the city lights, twinkling like earthbound stars through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Madison sat across from Alexander, acutely aware that this was the first time she'd seen him in anything but a business suit. The charcoal cashmere sweater he wore somehow made him look both more relaxed and more devastating. "You're staring," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I'm not used to seeing you unofficial." She took a sip of the wine he'd selected, a vintage that probably cost more than her first car. "It's disconcerting. Good disconcerting. Or bad. I haven't decided yet." She smiled slightly. "Though I notice you still managed to get us the most exclusive table in Manhattan. Old habits." He leaned back, studying her with those intense gray eyes. "You look beautiful." The simple compliment sent warmth flooding through her. The black dress she'd chosen had been an impulse buy, elegant but daring, with a neckline that drew the eye and a slit that showed just enough leg to be interesting. "Thank you." She met his gaze. "For more than just the compliment. For yesterday with Ryan." "Don't." Alexander's expression hardened slightly. "Don't thank me for defending you from someone who never deserved you in the first place." The rawness in his voice surprised her. "You feel very strongly about that." "I feel strongly about a lot of things." His eyes held hers. "Especially things that matter." The waiter arrived with their first course, a delicate composition of seasonal ingredients that looked more like art than food. Madison welcomed the interruption, needing a moment to collect herself. "Tell me about Charlotte," she said after a few bites. Alexander's hand stilled on his wine glass. "Why?" "Because she's part of who you are. Because her death shaped you. Because—" Madison took a breath. "Because I want to know you, Alexander. Not just the CEO, not just the man who saved me that night. You." He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city lights. Charlotte was light, pure light. The kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone feel special, noticed. She had this laugh that could make you forget every problem you'd ever had. His voice grew distant. "We met at Oxford. I was all ambition and drive. She was all heart. Somehow it worked. She balanced me, made me see the world differently. She sounds wonderful." She was. And I was too blind to see she was drowning. His knuckles went white around the wine glass. Depression isn't always obvious. Charlotte was so good at making others happy that none of us saw how much she was suffering. I was focused on building the company, on changing the world through sustainable technology. I thought— He closed his eyes briefly. "I thought love was enough, that my success would make her happy, that she knew how much she mattered." Madison reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "It wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" His laugh was bitter. "I was her husband. I should have seen the signs, should have been there when she needed me. Instead, I found her in our bathroom surrounded by empty pill bottles. Her note—" His voice cracked slightly. "Her note said she was sorry for not being strong enough to be what I needed." "Oh, Alexander." Madison's heart ached for him. "After she died, I threw myself into work, made the company bigger, more successful, created sustainability initiatives. That changed industries. But inside?" He turned his hand over, interlacing his fingers with hers. "Inside, I was standing on my own rooftop edge, wondering if anything would ever matter again." "What changed?" His eyes met hers, intense and vulnerable. "I found someone else standing on a rooftop. Someone who reminded me that pain doesn't have to be the end of the story." Madison's breath caught. "Alexander, when I saw you that night in Seattle, something in me recognized something in you. Not just the pain, but the strength underneath. The potential." His thumb traced patterns on her palm. "I offered you the job because I saw what you could become, but I didn't expect—" "Didn't expect what?" "To feel this way again." The words hung between them, charged with meaning. "To want to be more than just your employer or your friend." Madison's heart thundered in her chest. "And how do you feel?" Instead of answering, Alexander stood, pulling her gently to her feet. The private dining room had a small balcony, and he led her out into the cool October night. The city spread. Out below them, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. When Charlotte died, he said quietly, I built walls around myself, focused on creation instead of connection, convinced myself that changing the world through sustainable architecture was enough. He turned to face her. But then you walked into my life with your brilliant designs and your resilient heart, and those walls started cracking. Alexander. Madison stepped closer, drawn by the intensity in his eyes. I'm not good at this anymore, he admitted. At opening up. At risking. But with you, his hand came up to cup her cheek. With you I want to try. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility. Madison could feel the warmth of his palm against her skin, could see the vulnerability beneath his usual confident exterior. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? Of feeling this much. Of trusting again. She gestured between them. Of ruining something beautiful by making it complicated. Madison. The way he said her name made her shiver. Look. At me. She met his gaze, finding something there that made her heart skip. Life is complicated, he said softly. But sometimes, the most complicated things are the ones most worth fighting for. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Madison felt the last of her resistance crumble. She lifted her face to his, and when his lips met hers, it felt like coming home and embarking on an adventure all at once. The kiss was gentle at first, a question more than a demand. But when Madison's hand slid up to his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath the cashmere, something shifted. Alexander's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. She tasted wine and possibility, and the promise of something extraordinary. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, the city seemed to spin around them. Alexander rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed as if memorizing the moment. Well, Madison said softly, I guess I've decided. Decided? What? Good disconcerting or bad? She smiled against his lips. Definitely good. His laugh was low and warm, and when he kissed her again, Madison felt something inside her heal, a piece of her heart she thought had been permanently broken by betrayal, mending itself in the arms of a man who saw her strength even when she couldn't see it herself. Below them, Manhattan glittered with endless possibility. Above them, stars peeked through breaks in the clouds, and between them, something new and fragile and wonderful began to grow. 6 months after that first kiss on the balcony, Madison stood in the prism's completed atrium, watching the morning sun dance through the sculptural light wells she'd designed. The space was everything she'd envisioned and more, a perfect fusion of nature and architecture, of function and beauty. It's magnificent. Alexander's voice carried across the empty space as he approached. Even better than your original renderings. Madison smiled, not taking her eyes off the play of light through the living walls. The contractors thought I was crazy when I insisted on these specific angles for the light wells, said it would be too complicated, too expensive. And now? Now they're submitting it for 3 different architectural awards. She turned to face him, noting how the morning light softened his usually sharp features. Sometimes the most complicated things are the ones most worth fighting for. His eyes warmed at her echo of his words from that night at Pirsay. Speaking of fighting, he pulled an envelope from his suit jacket. This came for you. Madison recognized the Seattle postmark immediately. Her heart didn't race like it, used to it reminders of her old life. From Olivia? Yes. Would you like me to get rid of it? She considered for a moment, then took the envelope. No, I think it's time. Alexander's hand found the small of her back as she opened the letter, a gesture of silent support that had become as natural as breathing over the past months. Madison unfolded the pages, recognizing Olivia's flowing handwriting. Dear Madison, I've started this letter 100 times, but words seem inadequate for the pain I caused you. I'm not writing to ask forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because I heard about the Prism, about the incredible work you're doing in New York. I saw the Architectural Digest article about your revolutionary design approach. You've created something extraordinary. What happened with Ryan was unforgivable. We both know that now. He's back in Seattle, by the way. The New York job didn't work out. Something about contract complications with Graham Sustainable Technologies. He tried to reconnect with me, but I refused. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. I'm in therapy now, working to understand why I betrayed the best friend I ever had. The therapist says sometimes we hurt people because we're jealous of their light. You always shone so bright, Madison. I think part of me wanted to dim that light. Instead, I only made it shine somewhere else, somewhere better. I saw the photos of you and Alexander Graham at the Sustainable Architecture Gala. You look happy, truly, radiantly happy. The kind of happiness I should have celebrated. Instead of destroying, I don't expect a response. I just wanted you to know that your success, your joy, your incredible resilience, it's helped me understand what real strength looks like. Thank you for teaching me that, even if it's a lesson I learned too late to save our friendship. Be happy. Madison, you deserve it. Olivia Madison folded the letter carefully, feeling an unexpected sense of peace. She's right, you know. About? Alexander's hand traced soothing circles on her back. About some bridges needing to stay burned. About finding happiness somewhere better. She turned to face him fully. About you. His expression softened. Come with me. There's something I want to show you. He led her to the express elevator, pressing the button for the roof. Madison's heart skipped. They hadn't been up there since the building's completion. The roof garden was her final design for the Prism. A sustainable oasis 70 stories above Manhattan. Native plants and carefully cultivated trees created intimate spaces between solar panels and rainwater collection systems. But Alexander led her past all of that to the eastern edge, where the morning sun painted the city gold. Do you remember what you said to me that night in Seattle? He asked, turning to face her. When I found you on the roof, I asked how you could know. I'd regret jumping. And I said I knew because I'd been where you were. His hands found hers. I was wrong. Madison's brow furrowed. Wrong? I thought I understood your pain because I'd experienced my own. But standing here now, I realized something. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. You were never going to jump. How can you be so sure? Because you're a fighter, Madison Turner. Even then, at your lowest moment, something in you was ready to rebuild, to create, to transform pain into beauty. He gestured to the magnificent building beneath them. Look what you've created. Look what you've become. Tears pricked at Madison's eyes. Alexander. He dropped to one knee and her heart stopped. I don't have my wife's light anymore, he said softly, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. But you've given me something different, something equally precious. You've shown me that after loss, after pain, after standing on the edge of everything, there can be renewal, rebirth, revolution. Madison's hands trembled as he opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring, sustainable, ethical, and absolutely perfect. You took a broken man's offer of a job and turned it into an opportunity to rebuild both our lives. His voice rough with emotion. Now I'm offering something else. A partnership. A future. A love story that begins with two people finding each other on the edge and choosing to build something extraordinary together. Tears rolled freely down Madison's cheeks. Are you sure? After Charlotte? Charlotte taught me how to love. Losing her taught me how to survive. He looked up at her with absolute certainty. But you, Madison, you taught me how to live, again. Marry me. Build a life with me. Create something even more beautiful than this building we've made together. Madison pulled him to his feet, framing his face with her hands. Yes, she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. When they kissed, the morning sun wrapped them in gold, turning the Prism's windows into mirrors that reflected their embrace across the awakening city. Below them, Manhattan hummed with energy and possibility. Above them, a new day painted the sky in shades of promise. Madison Turner had once stood on a rooftop in Seattle, thinking her world had ended. Instead, she'd found a new beginning, a chance to create something revolutionary, a love that transformed rather than destroyed. As Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger, she thought about cycles of destruction and renewal, about pain and healing, about the extraordinary things that can grow from the ashes of what we thought we wanted. The prism stood as a testament to sustainable architecture, to innovative design, to the future of urban spaces. But for Madison and Alexander, it would always be something more, a monument to the kind of love that builds rather than breaks, that elevates rather than diminishes, that transforms darkness into light. Together they had created more than just a building. They had created a home for their hearts, a foundation for their future, and a love story that proved sometimes the most beautiful designs come from the moments when we think everything is falling apart. And that, perhaps, was the most sustainable miracle of all. If you discovered your partner's betrayal with your best friend, would you have the courage to completely reinvent your life like Madison did, moving to a new city, pursuing an ambitious career, and opening your heart to love again? Or would the fear of being hurt hold you back from embracing such dramatic changes? What would you do differently in her situation? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.